How you doing, everyone? Joe from HOGOUT. I hope you guys are having a great day. This video is your first baby hognose. Is your baby not feeding? Now, the reason why that is the title of this video, well, I've been having a lot of people hitting me up saying, "Hey, Joe, my baby is not feeding. I purchased my baby from another breeder, or I purchased my baby from a pet shop." And the pet shop told me, listen to this one, guys. If I buy this baby, I have to assist feed this baby because they're not feeding on their own. Yes, that's an Instagram DM I got about 2 weeks ago. Now, in the beginning of this video, we're going to talk about reputable dealers, where to buy your hognose from, your baby hognose from, and we're going to talk about feedback. We're going to talk about sites like Morph Market. And the reason why I'm making this video, well, it's the number one question I get asked quite often. My baby is not feeding. What do I do? Well, now I'm going to put on my old man glasses and we're going to talk about reputable dealers, okay? So we're going to talk about dealers that actually breed hognose snakes. We're not talking about, breeders or people on Morph Market that buy hognose snakes and then try to sell them for a profit. We're talking about reputable dealers, people that actually breed the hognose snake. Now, when you're in the market and you want to buy a hognose snake, you're interested because hognose snakes are gaining huge popularity in the last year or 2, 3 years, and you got to be really cautious on where you are buying your baby hognose from. Now, say you're on Morph Market, which is the number one site on where to buy hognose snake. You want to look at reputable dealers, people that have really great feedback. Always look at their feedback, everyone, and check out their feedback. Here's my feedback. And just make sure it's a reputable dealer. Make sure it's great feedback. Make sure they have a lot of feedback. Make sure it's like 5-star rating. Unfortunately, you're going to have that negative feedback once in a while when it comes to reputable dealers, but read it, ask questions, and usually that breeder will have a comment or a reply to that negative feedback to, I guess, debunk the problem with that customer. So when it comes to that add-on Morph Market, that baby you're interested in, these are some questions you might want to ask the breeder. The first one is, when was the baby born and at what weight? Number 2 is, when did the baby first start feeding after hatching? Number 3 is, how many consecutive feedings has that baby had on frozen, thawed, unscented? Now, when it comes to breeders, their ultimate goal is to have at least 5-6 consecutive feedings on frozen, thawed, unscented before they even post their ads. Some will post their ads like I do to say, hey, listen, this baby has had 3 consecutive feedings. This baby's not going to be ready for another 2, 3, or 4 feedings before I ship it out. The next question you want to ask is, has this baby ever fed on scented pinkies? If so, what scent? The next question you want to ask is this baby currently feeding on frozen thawed pinkies? If so, how many days? And the next question I have here is a good one to ask. Is the baby healthy? Do they have any movement issues? Do they have any kinks, etc.? And there's something I always supply my customers with, and you want to ask this question. Do you have a history of the baby's feeding? And I give my customers the feeding card that I have here, even though this is blank. I do fill this out from when the baby hatched all the way to their last feeding, and I supply this with the customer inside their shipping box so they get a good idea on when the baby feeds, what they fed on, and how often. And if you're really interested in traits and morphs, the one question you want to ask is, if it's not noted on the ad, what's the parent's traits? What are their morphs? And then the follow-up question to that is, what are the visuals? If you notice the visuals, that's fine, but ask them what the hets are, the percentage of hets, and let's make sure they're correct on that. You want to make sure you do your research on the percentages, visuals, the parents, so on and so forth. And Morph Market has a morph or a trait calculator you can check out. And what's cool about that calculator on Morph Market, it'll give you the potential of offsprings for that pairing. And the last question you really want to ask, and I get this from my customers quite often, and I do supply this to my customers, is, hey, do you have any current pics or maybe even a video of you holding your baby hognose? And the main reason for this question is, well, some customers just want to see updated photos, how they're growing, did they shed, what do they look like after shed. Also, videos will let you know if they're docile, if they're timid, if they're skittish, so on and so forth, because most of my customers want a calm hognose, a docile hognose. But let's be real here, guys. Sometimes the hognoses are pretty skittish and you have to train them. Hognoses are trainable. You can train them. And I tell my customers, if they're a little skittish, Hold them for about 5 or 10 minutes per day or every other day, and within like 2 or 3 months, they'll get used to you. They'll get used to you picking them up and holding them, and they can be trained. So hognoses can be trained. All right, the next section we're going to get on to, guys, is feeding. What size pinky versus the weight of my hognose? Now, I have changed this over the years by a few grams here and there, but 0 grams or 1 gram to 15 grams is extra small pinky, 16 to 25 grams, small pinky, 26 to 38 grams, large pinky, 39 to 50 grams, peach fuzzy, 51 to 90 grams, small mouse, 91 to 170 grams, medium mouse, 171 to 240 grams, large mouse, and over 300 grams, extra large mouse. Now, we need to realize here that females at 40 grams tend to feed more often than males at 40 grams because males at 40 grams are usually almost in their subadult status, and males after a year are usually at adult status around, say, 75 to 90 grams. And females usually hit subadult status around 160 to 180 grams. And around 180 to 200 grams, females will reach adult status after 2 years. So I don't recommend breeding, females until at least 2 years. Minimal, very minimal. The next section here is how often do I feed my hognose snake? Now, when it comes to babies, 1 gram to 20 grams, I would say every 5 to 6 days. Now, some breeders like to plump up their babies to get them on morph market faster, 5 to 6, 7 consecutive feed-ins. But a healthy way to feed your baby hognose, I would say the healthy way would be 5 to 6 days. Now, 21 grams to 140 grams, I say 7 to 10 days. Again, this is my opinion. This has worked incredibly well for me. It keeps them very healthy, very active. And of course, when they're in a terrarium, they don't move around too much like they would in the wild. So to keep them on the healthy side, and just to add here, hognose in the wild do not feed as often as I'm noting here when it comes to the different weights of your hognose snake. And the last size here is 141 grams to 300 plus grams. I would say every 10 to 14 days, my adults are very healthy feeding 10 to 14 days. And you know what? I've had no problems with my adults in the last few years. Now, a question I get quite often when I sell hognose snakes, and I've been telling people where to buy their frozen thawed. Some people go to their local pet shop. You can do that if you want. Don't do live because if they're established on frozen thawed, let's try to keep them on frozen thawed. But there's 2 reputable dealers where you can buy pinkies from. And the first one is rodentpro.com. That's where I buy all my pinkies. Now, I buy a high quantity. Now, they have packs of 100. They don't sell anything less than 100 in a pack. But you know what? Cold Blooded Cafe is a really good place to buy your pinkies, and they sell packs of 25. Now, before we get to the end of this video, and it's the good part of the video, and these are my methods on how to feed your baby hognose or a picky hognose, or if your baby has not fed in quite some time. We're going to get to that here in a minute. There's this video I made about a year ago, and it's a really good video. It has close to 2,000 views on it. People seem to love it, and it's my guide to feeding your hognose snake. It's a really awesome video, guys. Make sure you check that out because I go over some details on the sizes of mice, so on and so forth, like I stated in this video. But it's a really all-around good video on feeding your baby hognose. So that being said, let's go over the last section I have here for you guys, and that is methods on how to feed your baby hognose or your hognose in general. Now, before we get on with this section, I need to stress that heat is incredibly important for your baby hognose or your hognose in general to stay on feed. Now, I recommend the cool side not to be lower than 74 degrees and the warm side no higher than 90 degrees. So I would say cool side 74 to 82 and the warm side 84 to 88 or 84 to 90 degrees. And this is morning and night. So this is all around 24/7. And I need to stress here, do not have your heat on the cool side or your terrarium in general below 70 degrees. Now, I've had some people say, listen, Joe, my baby's not feeding. What's your cool side? My cool side is 64 degrees at night. They don't use a heating pad. Now, when it comes to my terrariums, I use a heating bulb during the day on the warm side and also a heating pad on the warm side at night. And if you guys want a really detailed video that I just made a few weeks ago on how to set up your terrarium, I go over heat, substrate, hides, water dish, where to place it. I go into so much detail, and that's your first baby hognose, how to build your terrarium. And I'll put that link down below too as well. So if your baby has not fed for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, it's nothing really to worry about if your baby has been feeding before. Don't be upset, be patient. Sometimes, especially males, will go off a feed for like 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. This happens to Nirvana at least once a year. So as I stated earlier in the first section, reputable dealers, make sure you ask your breeder, have they fed scented? Are they on frozen thawed? Are they drop feeding? Are they feeding off of tongs? These are 4 points I want to bring up in this section. Now, if your baby's not feeding, this first tip or trick might work for you. Now, what I have done in the past with my babies, if they're not feeding, is use a cloudy Tupperware bowl. Now, what I do is I put the pinky on the outside perimeter, on the inside perimeter of the Tupperware bowl. I'll put the cover on, and sometimes I do cover it. You don't have to cover it, but leave your baby sit there with that pinky on the outside perimeter for about 30 minutes. Come back in about 30 minutes, and most likely, that hognose will bump his head into that pinky and actually feed on it. The next method I have here for you guys is drop feeding outside the warm side hide. This works really good. I've helped a lot of customers in the past with this method, and they said, Joe, thanks. You got my baby back on feed. And as you see in this video, you see I drop feed the pinky outside the warm side hide on a paper towel. That's highly recommended too, is putting the pinky on a paper towel. The baby will come out of the worm side hide and, just sit there. They're not afraid. They're not skittish. We're not bothering them. And boom, they hit the pinky and we get them to feed. Now, the next point I want to bring up is scent feeding. Now, this is not recommended by me, but you know what? If you want to get your baby back on feed, this will help you. And this is the reason why you need to ask this question to the breeder that you purchased your hognose from. Have they ever fed on scented pinkies? Now, if your breeder comes back to you and says, yeah, they fed on sardine for the first 4 times, and now they're on frozen thawed, well, if your baby's not feeding in 2 or 3 weeks, get a can of sardines, break it up like I do here in this video, put them in little tiny deli dishes, cover them up, freeze it, and then you can use that every week you feed them just in case they're back on scented. And you might ask yourself, well, Joe, how do you scent pinkies? Well, in this video clip here, what you do is you dip the pinky head in the scent. And of course, if you're using calcium or vitamins, which I highly recommend for babies, you dip the rear end of that pinky in the powdered substance. Now, the ultimate goal here, of course, is to get your babies feeding off of tongs. Now, all my babies from day one, I have fed on tongs. There are a couple, 2 out of my 60 babies, will only feed when they're drop fed inside their tubs. And when you're feeding on tongs, be very, very, very patient. It might take you 3, 4, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Just position the pinky right, bump their face with it. And you know what? Sometimes your hognose will bluff strike. They won't like it. But you know what? Be persistent, be patient, and eventually, your hognose will feed off the tongs. So there you have it, everyone. I hope this video helps you in the future. If you have any questions, concerns, anything I said in my video, hit me down below in the comments section. Hit me up on my Instagram, link down below. We also have a Discord community server, free to join. Hit me up there too as well. So that being said, guys, if you're new here, check out my channel. Hit that subscribe button. I will see you in the next video. This is Joe from HOGOUT. I'm out. Cheers.